Welcome back to Careful Boys. We got Tulsi Gabbard back. And kind of bridging it from the last point, hella people I've seen all over Twitter X call you an Assad apologist. Can you maybe apologize?
Not today, my friend.
What I never understood is that clearly, you're a veteran, you've been in the military, and then they do this whole thing that, like, Russian asset, Assad, and I'm like, but the words that are coming out of your mouth is, we shouldn't be in these wars. So how is that? I don't know. That to me doesn't make any sense. It's like you're looking out for the American people and the soldiers and them first, rather than the military-industrial complex. So that's where I'm like confused. And have you felt like beyond just kind of smearing, backlash, and like even more crazier, I guess, threats to your life or anything from people that find you're stopping them from making money from all of this or whatever? Yeah, or benefiting, yeah.
You bring up, I think, the central point about it, that is the answer to the question of why, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for these, and it is the uniparty of warmongers in Washington who are the ones who are behind this.
On both sides.
On both sides. It's very often the only thing they can agree on. And when they do, it has a dangerous and costly outcome. But it is the military-industrial complex that President Eisenhower warned against in his farewell address, and that cozy relationship between the military-industrial complex and Congress. And you can imagine why he thought it was so important to point this out in his farewell address as a 5-star general who served and led our military to where it is today. It has only gotten exponentially worse. And so this is why you get this kind of reaction. When you have people like me saying, no, we shouldn't be going and toppling dictators randomly around the world when it serves the interest of this uniparty of warmongers in Washington, but meanwhile turning a blind eye to the dictators that they like and that they want to keep in place that serve their interests. And there's a huge, long history. There's a great book called Overthrow for those who are interested in actually looking documented throughout American history why our country has continuously launched these regime changes and toppling leaders and propping up other ones. And in almost every case, there is an industrial interest. And so you look at some of the things in Central and South America. You had like the big produce industry, bananas, that was driving like, hey, well, we want to bring the American and market into this. So we want to have a dictator in charge who will give us favorable terms on the business. You see big defense contractors. You see where we are with Iran today and the toppling of Mossadegh there. That was around oil. And not allowing them to control their own oil, essentially. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of examples of this, but in all of these, it kind of comes down to the same thing. That if you're a person who says we shouldn't be the policemen of the world, we shouldn't be constantly in a state of war that actually undermines our security, how about we strive for peace? How about we build relationships with other countries based on mutual shared interest of peace and prosperity, instead of thinking that the only way we can solve problems is through the dropping of bombs or economic warfare through sanctions. For those like me who are advocating for this, their easiest and first line of attack is to say exactly that. Well, you must love dictators. Why else would you not want to go to war?
It's a solid line. You love so much, why don't you marry him?
It's been used forever.
Yeah. Oh man. 2004, they got me pretty good with that. Like, if you're with us, if you're against us, you're with the terrorists and shit like that.
Yeah. And here's the irony about the whole Syria thing, specific to Syria, is the people who were saying that, because I went to Syria and I met with Assad and they were like, oh, you must love Assad and you must love dictators and
Did you hug him?
Right, exactly. No, I didn't. Just for the record.
So people are running the country.
But this is coming from the very same people who were using taxpayer dollars to arm actual literal Islamist terrorists in Syria, because these terrorists were the most powerful and effective fighting force on the ground seeking to topple Assad. So instead of saying, hey, let's find common cause toward peace, they said, let's use American taxpayer dollars to go and arm groups, either actual Al-Qaeda or associated with Al-Qaeda, to go and topple this regime. And not telling us, trying to hide it first of all, but then not actually thinking through like, oh, okay, well, if Assad's a really bad guy, we should get rid of him and replace him with Al-Qaeda terrorists, because that's going to be great for the Syrian people, what to speak of for our own security.
You did a wild thing back then. You proposed legislation saying we shouldn't fund Al-Qaeda with weapons, right? You said you proposed this. Do
you remember the name of the bill?
No.
The Stop Arming Terrorists Act.
That's really good.
Kind of effective as well.
It was very controversial.
And what do? They go and they rip it in half?
You saw that. Literally.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I had a report, I remember, after introducing that legislation as a reaction to what was going on, saying, hey guys, we shouldn't be doing this. I remember, like it was yesterday, walking off the House floor after votes. Usually there's a throng of reporters hanging around trying to catch whoever they're trying to catch with their gotcha questions. And so she was asking me about this bill, and what she told me was, and I don't remember what outlet she was with, but she's like, don't you think that sometimes in order to serve our interests, we sometimes have to work with people who may be unsavory characters? I'm like, we should not be working with Al-Qaeda terrorists who attacked us on 9/11, who continue to seek to destroy us. She did. But she was like, but don't you think? And I'm just like, no.
But George W. said that then you're with the terrorists.
Right. And so that's where the people who were calling me a dictator lover were with the terrorists.
Wow.
Maybe the bill just needed a better acronym.
That's the through line here.
It's a revolving door.
Yes.
I think the most difficult part is I actually like talking about the real issue.
Yes.
But then it's only as of late that people in politicians are actually, now there's people talking about real issues, where traditional media, they're still talking about nonsense and dodging questions, and they have a way of speaking that I never really
It's
enjoyed.
unsavory.
Yeah. But then all this stuff is, to me, I'm like, if you do the research, oh wow, we actually created, we supported, trained Al-Qaeda. Osama was on our side when, we were trying to fight the Soviets. That's all US created. And then when you say that, people are like, you're crazy. And I'm like, but it's in the history books. What are you talking about? Like, it's written.
It's not in the news, though.
It's not in the news. So how do you deal with that, where people have a different perception of reality? And even if it's factual, then they're going to just write you off like a Looney Tune.
Here's why, and I appreciate you guys having me on. I love the fact that we're able to come and have this kind of conversation about things that matter. And I think it's also why those who watch traditional cable news are doing so less and less. Because this kind of conversation will never happen. It'll never happen on cable news.
Maybe on Don Lemon's show.
They fired him.
All right.
So even they don't want him.
They got lost a good. They don't want to get their Cheerio sponsorship taken away.
I like that he likes to talk about the issues, though. He loves to talk about the issues. And not just
Did you watch his interview?
I did.
I haven't watched it. I saw a few clips.
There's clips going everywhere, though.
Lot of substance.
Yeah.
A lot of substance.
Yeah.
Like this conversation.
Right. That's the problem with traditional cable news, but it's also what gives me some hope, is that people are turning that off and looking for podcasts, looking for new media, different alternative, just real conversations where we may not agree on everything. That's not the point. The
Hear
point
people
is
out.
Hear people out and go back and forth and actually listen and not just come at this. I know you got a clear bias. I'm picking up on that.
Me?
Yes. The rest of you.
He's been trying to get you this whole time.
I am going to get
I
you.
love it.
I will
Yes.
get you.
Okay, I'll be ready.
He's our gotcha guy.
But this kind of dialogue is, it's everything.
Yeah.
It's everything. Anyway, I honestly, sincerely, I can't express my appreciation enough. And it makes me happy that more and more people are looking for platforms like this to get information and to know, oh wow, you guys are actually talking about something that's real and that matters and you're not trying to dictate to people like, no, this is what you must know, believe, and don't go and like fact check it yourself. Just take my word for it.
Well, I remember when Ron Paul was running for president.
Yeah.
The media did such a good job because I was watching. I was watching the news since I was a little kid and stuff. Because I did really bad in school. My parents would only let me watch the news because it's like educational.
And you didn't have any friends.
It brainwashed me totally. And so I remember thinking that this guy's a total crackpot because we have to fight the terrorists. And he's like, we can't be over there fighting the terrorists. We made the terrorists. I'm like, this guy's nuts. I threw it all away.
Yeah.
And I remember. After Obama got in, watching him just carry on the Bush legacy of war in Iraq, that just completely fired everything off.
Because you thought it was going to end.
I thought it was going to end. That's what he said.
Once and for all, we have a guy on our side that's going to stop all the wars, but he just continued.
Everything.
Yeah.
He actually expanded the wars from 5 to 7. He we expanded, like you're saying, into Syria.
Yeah. Have you heard of the Espionage Act? This is something Rand Paul, and others have talked about. It's something that has been used more and more. It was originally used against Daniel Ellsberg when he was a contractor for the Rand Corporation during the Vietnam War, and he released what is very famously known as the Pentagon Papers, exposing the lies of the government that they were telling the people, like, hey, this war's going great, we're going to continue, when in fact behind closed doors they were like, things are not going great. And we don't quite know how to end this thing. He was charged with violating the Espionage Act by releasing this information that the government had classified, not because it revealed national security secrets, but because it revealed embarrassing information that they didn't want the American people to know.
That they might suck at their jobs is what you're saying, right?
That they did suck
Oh,
at their
my bad.
jobs, yes.
Yeah.
It was kind of incontrovertible evidence.
Got it.
But he was facing 115 years in prison with these charges in the Espionage Act. And so the thing that, and this was documented in the movie called The Post, and it was interesting, but they didn't document what happened next, which was when he went to trial, the Espionage Act under U.S. Code still today says that if you are charged with the Espionage Act, in a court of law, you are not allowed to speak to your intent behind the release, your intent behind your actions. So how does one in a country where our whole system is dependent upon, innocent until proven guilty, how do you defend yourself in a court of law without being able to say, here's why I did what I did? And it is called the public interest defense. He released this information not to aid and abet an enemy of the United States, but to serve the greater public interest of transparency and accountability of our government. The lawsuit against him was dropped because the White House at that time, this was when they created the White House plumbers, and they illegally wiretapped him and all this other kind of stuff, so they weren't allowed to continue with the lawsuit. But this guy is such a legend that through all of these years, and he just passed away not too long ago, but through all of these years, he's like 90 plus years old. He kept a top secret classified document, leaked it to a New York Times reporter specifically because he wanted his day in court to prove how unconstitutional the Espionage Act was. Wow. He didn't get the opportunity to do that, but here's the irony of it all. President Obama is the president who used the Espionage Act to charge Americans, including journalists, with crimes more than any other president combined in history.
Wow.
Yeah, they got that Fox News reporter, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw.
I don't remember his name.
Remember his name either.
I mean, they were getting emails of journalists. They were getting phone call records of journalists. I mean, even during that time, even mainstream sources like the New York Times and others were like, this is extremely unconstitutional and a grave abuse of power under the name of national security and the Espionage Act and so forth. So the thing that this legislation's been used for is as a weapon against political opponents. So it's no surprise that I think President Trump faces over 300 years in prison because of charges filed under violating the Espionage Act.
I feel like for a movement to work, you'd need someone pushing certain initiatives, but at the same time, you need the general public to also be like, quote unquote, smart enough to understand. So like, I think with the regular person, because I see a lot of my in-laws and how they view the news, they go, "Oh, Obama plays basketball." Yep.
Worst scandal was a tan. His worst scandal was a tan suit.
Yeah. So like, how
Paddleboards in Hawaii.
So how do we get like the whole like get everyone involved so that we can, I guess, have the same conversation?
Yeah.
Yeah, because if they're so dumb,
Yeah.
I don't even know how to talk to them. I don't know what to do anymore.
You face a lot of those, like it's just you're not even talking to a person, you're talking to a slogan or like somebody who's just saying slogans at you or headlines.
No, I don't. I have found a lot of hope in having really phenomenal conversations with random people I meet on the street at a coffee shop. I was in Austin yesterday and a guy came up and I was doing some work at the coffee shop, came up, we had a great conversation. It happens to me all the time.
Do they have to get past this guy first though?
Yeah, they better, dude.
What
do you want to say there?
I know.
They better check in.
All right.
Jeez.
Go to
My
that.
sister used to be a U.S. Marshal, so she is my version of this guy.
Well, I'm worried about you too. You were in the army, dude. I don't know.
We have our own security. He was a Marine.
I know, yeah.
Show them the guns, dude.
I know.
You can get by this guy real fast.
We did a workout in Vegas.
Yeah, when Tim was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was a fun workout.
But he was a supply guy. So
Really good though.
That's how you got so buff.
I never lose track of how many markers we need or any of that stuff.
Yeah, let's not tell the stories right now.
Do you think that? So what you just said. Whenever I meet real people too, nobody's talking about the slogans I hear on CNN,
Yeah.
MSNBC. So is that just a fugazi and
Well, it's kind of exposing how the people who create those slogans and the media that perpetuates those slogans, they really do think we are that stupid. They really do think we are that stupid. The Biden administration really does think that we're so stupid to believe him when he says, you know, hey, I want to secure our borders, you know, 3+ years after they've had open borders.
He doesn't. He needs more money. He needs a.
Yeah.
They need a clean bill.
Yes, of something.
Yeah.
Of something.
But
Whatever
he
it
can't
is.
act.
Whatever.
Bill.
Yes, but then he says he can act, and he's being forced to use executive orders to secure the border.
He started that way. That's what
which
he came
in
in
his
and
4th year in office, apparently. Anyway,
did. Yeah.
but that is the offensive thing is that they really think that they can stand there and say, well, the economy's great, guys. The economy's great. Look at the stock market; it's doing great. Even as you know, I went through a list a couple days ago. What was it like? Bread is 70% more expensive now than it was a couple years ago. Ramen is 65% more expensive than it was a couple years ago. You go down the list of like basic things that people buy at the grocery store, and we're seeing 50% and higher increase in cost because of inflation. And so, yeah, maybe in your ivory tower you can say, based on my metrics, the economy is doing
Bill
great.
Bill Maher said that.
Exactly.
Jillian Michaels was like, "Have you tried to buy eggs lately?"
Exactly.
Yeah, that was wild.
That was wild. That exchange that he had with her, where she was talking about like the rampant crime and all. He's like, oh, you know, whatever. And she's like, no, somebody broke in my house.
He's like, "Why don't they just move into gated communities?"
There's a policy.
Well, do you remember that
proposal
actually?
for you.
I think it was. I want to say it was 10 years ago. A bunch of, I think it was the Democrats who were saying, people should just buy electric cars. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
If gas is so expensive, buy an electric car, you dummy.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
I do remember that. And what I saw the headline this morning that Biden wants to reduce, what is it, the car base by 50%, basically say that 50% of all cars sold must be electric vehicles by a certain date to force people to drive an electric car, I guess.
And truckers.
Which here in California, maybe you guys can shed some light on this. It's kind of complicated because you've got power issues as well.
I moved to Vegas to get away from this shit.
Ding ding ding, me too.
He's in Hawaii.
These guys.
The smart ones moved away. We're just still trying to convince the other ones.
I'm in between Vegas and Hawaii.
That guy's a dancer. He's got a dancer brain. He's not very smart. Does creative stuff.
Can I ask, like, as when you were leaving the Democratic Party, does it happen where like people start to hear that you're feeling disillusioned, and then don't people from the conservative side, like your own peers, start trying to convince you to go conservative, or does that not happen?
Oh yeah, no, it happens all the time.
And what made you like be like, no thanks, like?
I've always been an independent-minded person. I think it's important to be a critical thinker as you're tackling whatever the issue is. I have always had a hard time with labels because they mean different things to different people.
That's true.
You look at the Republican Party today, and they are dueling with each other about what the Republican Party should be. You've obviously got Donald Trump, who's challenging the entire quote-unquote establishment of power. You have a Nikki Haley and a Mike Pence who are saying, well, we've just got to go back to the norms, which is like a code word for saying, yes, we should be at war, and yes, we should continue to feed the powers that be in the Washington establishment. And then you've got, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes, you've got Matt Gaetz, you've got a whole bunch of other people in between. You've got Rand Paul, who's a libertarian Republican, essentially. So this is not a problem, but it's just, I had a woman ask me, I was at a dinner in New York a couple of weeks ago, and at the end of the dinner, in front of everybody, she's just like, but will you stand with Republicans? And my answer to her was, which Republicans are you talking about? Like, if you're asking me, and I told her, if you're asking me if I'm going to stand with Liz Cheney, no, hell no. And so that to me is like, labels are labels. If that's what you care about, you're paying attention to the wrong thing.
A lot of people care about that.
A lot of people do. A lot of people do. In the Democratic Party, they had this slogan that I hated every time I heard it was vote blue no matter who.
That's crazy.
Wild.
Sounds like a gang to me.
Exactly.
It's weird though, because I didn't hear them saying that about you.
No.
Why not? You're blue. You're blue.
And that was the ironic thing through that 2020 presidential primary was, hey, we want a woman of color to win the presidency. And I was like, hi guys, right here. Like, no.
Not you, not you.
There was an event called She the People that was held in Texas. There were multiple women running for president in 2020 in the Democratic primary. And it was an opportunity for us to address people there. The article that the Washington Post wrote describing the event after the fact listed all the other women who were there, and my name was not included in the article.
Wow.
So it's like, okay, maybe there was an oversight. Maybe he went to the bathroom during my speech. I don't know. My press secretary sent a note and said, hey, Tulsi Gabbard was there. She spoke, yada, yada, yada. You did not include her in the article. And the response from this seasoned political reporter was, I am under no obligation to include her in this article.
Wow.
What if she's just someone you bullied in high school?
I was homeschooled, so unless you're related to me.
All right, well, we're gonna stop here, but when we come back, we're gonna be watching a lot of cool TikToks with Tulsi Gabbard.
Nice.